to. Who's up in this bitch?
All right. Hold on. All right.
Guys
So,
are never gonna hire me to podcast anything.
all right. So, what's going on, y'all? It is Scott Pizzle and, of course, NicolePt06. We are going live tonight to talk about the scrimmage that took place this past the scrimmage. It was basically like a preseason game, but against one another. The good thing is the Giants won. That's a good thing. But we're going to talk about numerous other things as well. But most notably, we just want to talk about the scrimmage. We were talking off YouTube, and we were like, hell, why don't we just get it on YouTube and start talking about it? So, with no further ado, what's going on, PT06? How are you doing tonight?
I'm all right. I'm chilling. I'm a little hungry, so I might have some scrimps.
Get some snacks.
I'm gonna get my scrimps ready. They're in the air fryer, but I'm chilling.
Good deal. So, ladies first. Do you want to talk about the scrimmage? What you saw, what you liked, what you didn't like. I'm gonna be honest with you before you go. I'm gonna run a little hot tonight. I'm gonna run a little hot. Okay. Now it ain't at you. It's just some Giant fans in general, and then this team in general, but just from what I've seen. But of course, it's always ladies first, and so I'll let you go.
I mean, from the 5 minutes of actual scrimmage footage, first of all, I just want to say I'm glad that they didn't come out with any significant injuries. Second of all, I'm not sure if they were, I think they were doing, it was like two-hand touch or something. So
yeah,
I would say mostly like vanilla offense. Maybe the defense was bringing some pressure on third down. I didn't get anything out of that scrimmage. Honestly, the production was terrible. I understand they don't want to, give too much away. I think the Cowboys are scrimmaging, or they did scrimmage today live, but none of their players had jerseys with numbers on them. So they kind of took a different approach. The Giants waited a day before putting out the scrimmage video, which there really wasn't much to see. I mean, the two takeaways that I got out of it, which I'm tempering my expectations on this, and I'm trying not to get too worried, were Daniel Jones fumbled twice. So
yeah,
and that's in scrimmage. But besides that, I'm just happy they came out with no injuries. I know Blake Martinez was out. Evan Ingram was out. They were back at practice today. So there's a lot of young players. I think the coaches are doing a good job. I'd say I've been to a couple training camps, and I do watch the training camp recaps and highlights. I really like the effort. I love the efficiency of the practices, even though the players, over half of the players on the team now are brand new from last year. Say 75%. I just want to see competent football where they're playing efficiently and with effort. I think Joe Judge is going to bring that. But out of the scrimmage, I honestly have zero, other than apparently the defense outplayed the offense, which is typical. Defenses are usually ahead of the offenses. I'm excited about our young offensive line. I think they still have a ways to go, but I think we have some studs there for years to come. It's going to take some time. I'm not expecting anything crazy this year. I just hope that they play hard. So, I mean, just to recap, no real comments on the scrimmage other than the Daniel Jones issues and the D playing really well.
And not that it happened last night, but I'll go ahead and get your take on it. So, have you liked what you've seen from Joe Judge, and like the take a lap stuff? And the one of my favorite things was the tennis balls that they put on the cornerbacks, so they couldn't grab or what. Well, I mean, just Joe Judge. Like, so far, your initial thoughts, as he is obviously starting to earn his rep as being the Giants head coach now.
I mean,
it's okay. It's okay if you feel negative about it. It really is.
I don't feel any type of way, and this is going to sound cliche, but the jury's still out on Joe Judge.
Yeah.
I like the nucleus of the coaches that he has around him. I think he has a lot of really experienced and tenured guys, and I think that the way that the coaching is structured is allowing him to like really just come into his own eventually. I think he's got a lot of just fundamentally good and sound practices, which he learned again through the best coaches, college, collegiate, and professional. I still think that there's a measure in the locker room of wait and see amongst the players, but they're so young and impressionable, and that's what I really like about this. Is if you were going to do this situation with any other team, there might be an issue. But I think because you have a lot of younger dudes, and he's a young guy himself, but he demands that his coaches be efficient and be neat and be organized. He demands high intensity. So I like that. I think we've had two pussy coaches before him, which they could be nice people. I'm not saying they're nice people. I hope God knows where Macadone is right now. I don't know if he's coaching anymore, but I heard there were a couple feelers out on him this year. I don't think he got a job. What's his face is back to being an offensive coordinator, but they just weren't ready. This is the New York market. People need to realize this. So just like Eli Manning as an athlete was the perfect athlete for New York Giants, I think Joe Judge has the opportunity to be the perfect coach. And I'm glad that he has all of this experience around him. So far, I'm 50-50. I would like to see this team not be sloppy and put in effort. If I see that consistently, I'll hop on the train.
So it works. The whole take a lap, tennis balls taped to your hands, that works.
I like it.
Works. It works if you win.
Right.
It doesn't work.
I think it works if you don't win too. I think players just need to get back to the fundamentals. Well, they're lost.
Yeah, no, there's no question that the Giants organization needed to go back down to the basics and go back down to the very bottom, because they were in the bottom of the league the last 3 years. Right. What I'm suggesting is that he needs a few players, most notably the star players, to buy into it. Yeah. And if they buy into it, the rest of them will buy into it as well. But if there's no winning, then I don't know if they'll buy into it. I think or even just some improvement for that matter. I have loved everything about what Joe Judge has done so far. Every interview that I've heard from him this training camp, everything that I listened to a lot of the mic'd up stuff during the scrimmage. I just really like what he's selling to the players, what he's selling to the team, and I really like the idea that I feel like where he's going with the Giants and where he's trying to make them. Here's where I'm going to give you some my scrimmage thoughts, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now I'm going to run hot PTO6 because I got into it with a couple of Giants.
Give it to me.
Say what?
Give it to me hot.
Okay, so here's I got into it with a couple Giant content creators here on YouTube, and one of the hot topics that had happened was I think this was on Twitter or something like that, but I said that it was a big deal that the Giants lost Nate Solder. Huge deal. Like that was a big problem that we lost him. Obviously he's setting out this season because of the COVID concerns, and I get the reason why he's doing it, but the last thing the Giants needed was to have a tackle, whether you thought he was good or not last year, of his experience, to just bail on the team. And that's a bad word to use, but my point is he's not playing. And so there's a lot of Giant fans that think that, we'll just put in the guy who we drafted 4th overall and everything will be okay. Everything will be fine. And that logic is so silly and so stupid and so dumb. And I've absolutely lost my cool because people think, well, they get a couple numbers here on YouTube, or they get a couple subscribers and they get a couple views, and all of a sudden they think their opinion is really top dog and really matters, when the reality is they don't know the difference between their nose hair or their butt hair. Okay. They can't separate the two. And so it pisses me off that when you have a real Giants fan or real guys that really follow this team or really know this team say, well, this isn't going to work, and you go against that, and then you watch the scrimmage the other night, and you watch Andrew Thomas trying to play left tackle. He got destroyed by Lorenzo Carter, Pt06. Lorenzo Carter.
Can I make a comment?
Hold on. Go ahead.
So I think 100% you're correct that Nate Solder not playing the season is a big deal.
Huge deal.
Here's where I stand on that. I agree with you in that perspective. On the other hand, it's he was gone next year. There's no gone next year.
Yeah,
so
I get that.
In knowing that, I fully expect this team to at least compete. Do I personally believe they can win the Super Bowl? What fan of any team will say no?
Sure.
But if it means that if I knew already that we weren't going to make the Super Bowl, I would rather have the Andrew Thomas in there and get 1 year under his belt before we go on.
I'm going to tell you the problem, but I'm going to tell you the problem with that, PTO. The problem with that is
Daniel Jones is going to get killed.
Well, the problem, it has a lot to do with Daniel Jones, because if Daniel Jones does not work, if he is not a franchise quarterback, or if something happens, or he gets injured, or whatever, it sets us back. I mean, the coach doesn't matter. I mean, it's a quarterback-driven league anyways, so the quarterback has to work. If the quarterback doesn't work or can't get the job done, the team is set back until they find the quarterback. Year 2 is so pivotal for Daniel Jones. This year it might be the most important year in all of his career, because last year you can make the case for, oh, well, that's a rookie mistake. He fumbled, rookie mistake. Oh, he threw a bad interception. That's a rookie mistake. That shit's over. He had playing time last year. He got a stack of playing time. And while he got playing time, Eli Manning set the bench. A big deal. That's a big fucking deal. And so the fact is, Daniel Jones did not prove that he could stay healthy for the whole season last year. He did not prove that he couldn't not fumble, and he couldn't, look, the Tampa Bay game, he clearly helped win us the game, right? With his mobility, with his arm, my boy Darius Slayton had something to do with that, but he clearly went out there and won the game. If you continue to get hurt, the mobility, it goes away. If you continue to get hit and take sacks, the mind, the psychological part starts to creep in. The very thing that happened to Eli Manning late in his career, he didn't trust his offensive line. So if Daniel Jones in year 2, who's looked like he's bulked up, which he looks phenomenal. I mean, he looks so much better going into this season than he did last season from a physicality standpoint. He looks bulked up, and that looks great. But as I like to say, more muscles, more problems. But the thing is, is that he needs some protection. And Lorenzo Carter, who was a ghost for us last year. You can claim scheme and all of a sudden say, well, he's in a better scheme now. You can claim all that. But I was so high on Lorenzo Carter going into last season. If you want to talk about stock market, I was all in. I bought every stock I could in Lorenzo Carter. Didn't know he was on the field all year long. Couldn't have told you where he was. And all of a sudden, we have a scrimmage, and he looks like Lawrence Taylor out there. Would you could make the and by the way, Dexter Lawrence looks great. You can make the case and say, whoa, hell, and that's another thing that I've been going nuts about is I've been listening to Giant fans, not you PTO6, but I've been listening to Giant fans out here claiming, well, there's no pass rush. They got no pass rush. Well, then last night they look like the 07 Giants. Or not, I'm sorry, not last night. But
they do have a pass rush this year.
Well, no, I agree. I agree with you, Pete. That's what I'm saying. And
I think
there's a lot of Giant
coach to know how to schematically get them in the right position. Yeah. They're gonna have to create a pass rush because we're already decimated in the secondary.
that was what I was going to bring up, and eventually was the fact that the secondary looked better or didn't look so bad, but I think it had a lot to do with the pass rush. So the truth be, so try to bring all this together. Lorenzo Carter is out there, and they tried to put a tackle with it, or not a tackle, but a tight end with Andrew, and they still couldn't stop Lorenzo Carter. They couldn't stop Dexter Lawrence. And so you sit back and you say, well, damn, do we got just one hellacious defense now? Do we got a great pass rush? Or is this offensive line going to absolutely struggle? Now, I will say that in previous years, I think we've struggled offensive line-wise because we lack talent.
Right.
I think now we lack experience. And which I think, I think Hernandez and Zeitler are okay at the guard position, but our tackles, I mean, again, I don't think Giant fans understand how bad it is to lose Solder, because we cannot just because he's 4th overall pick, just because he played in the SEC doesn't mean that it's going to translate to the National Football League. Does not mean. In fact,
he's not Tyron Smith,
In fact, yeah, and in addition to that, if you throw him out there, and again, common sense has lost most Giant fans, but if you throw him out there at left tackle, which is the blind side, and he goes out there and gets dominated, if Andrew Thomas is starting week 1 against the Steelers, who do you think that they're going to go after? Who do you think the Steelers defense is going to try to expose?
It's going to be like a Madden game. It's just going to be like screen.
Well, no, but they're going to go right after the rookie tackle and show and make him prove that they can stop him. And you might say, well, why would they not just go after the right tackle? That's not Daniel Jones's blind side. And then that goes into the other point about Daniel Jones is if he's getting killed this year, if he's getting smashed because Thomas isn't figuring out the program, which for some reason, again, some of these Giant fans that want to argue with me, they can't separate the fact between college football and pro football. It's a big difference. I don't understand why people think that college football and pro football are the same thing, but they're not. With that being said, if Andrew Thomas gets killed out there, or he gets blown up, or just doesn't play at the level that he needs to, that he's ready, and the fact is he's just not ready. That's the truth. It's not that he's not good; it's that he's not ready. And then you get Daniel Jones hurt. You're talking about your future left tackle and your future franchise quarterback getting exposed in 2020 that can affect long-term issues there. Like, that's a problem. So, everybody wants to talk about the secondary and talk about all the potential weapons. Oh, yeah, Evan Ingram looks great, which, what is that? Like, Evan Ingram and Lorenzo Carter, both of them, like, they both always look good in training camp, Pt06, both of them. They always do. You buy stock into them. By week 4, you're done with them. I mean, it's just they're both the same dude. And so I don't know how to feel about Lorenzo Carter, for example, after watching the scrimmage, because you look at it and you say, man, he looks good physically. He's making plays. Is that the offensive line? Did he improve? I don't know what to think of him just yet.
So let me ask you a question.
But he looked like a Pro Bowl, right?
Who's that?
Lorenzo, like, from what you saw, I mean, the man had four sacks.
He looked really quick off the edge. He kind of reminded me of like a stouter OC, like a bigger OC Umanura, kind of, in a way, because he was just, it didn't, like, to your point, it wasn't just Andrew Thomas who got beat. They put him on the other side. Yeah. That Cam Fleming dude got beat too.
Yep.
They had, they tried to put this guy 85. I don't know who he was, but he was a tight end. That was a fucking joke. I think no matter where they played him, he was just balling out. But here's my question to you. Do you feel like this scrimmage, I feel like your perception of the season is like super spoiled because of this scrimmage. Is that a good assessment? Like, do you feel much worse after this scrimmage? Like, why has something changed? Has something clicked? Is it just a culmination of things? Like,
Well, I mean, first of all, me being a big football fan, I do know that the defense is always ahead of the offense, anyways, in the preseason. So
I think people are sleeping on our. I think honestly, people are sleeping on our D line. I think this division on paper has probably the best defensive lines out there. Maybe I would say the Eagles are on decline in defensive line this year. Last year, 2 or 3 years ago, they were top notch. I think it probably goes somewhere along the lines of I think Washington and Dallas. I think Washington might edge out Dallas. Washington might have the best defensive line this year, but thank God that they're Washington, and thank God that they have this fat Tubalard at quarterback that's not going to be able to do anything. And then you got, Dallas, who, man,
Dallas is a problem.
Dallas is a problem, and then I think the Giants come in third, and then I think it's the Eagles. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, because I think all teams have a good defensive line anyway. But to your question, I think Judge kept a lot of things vanilla on offense. I don't know what they were trying to gauge with that scrimmage, other than probably evaluate the players that are on the fringe. If you noticed, immediately the next day we cut 2 players and replaced them with somebody else. So I think this is more about just evaluation. Obviously, you want your offense to do better. Obviously, you don't want your offensive line to get raped, especially when we established the fact. Especially when we've established the fact that last year, I think a lot of Daniel Jones's issues were because of the instability of that offensive line. I think it is a mental thing for him, but I also saw at Duke, he had a shit team period. He didn't have receivers. He didn't have an offensive line. So I think he's carried over some of the tendencies, obviously, that he had at Duke. And one of the things that worries me about him is, we know that he's mobile. We also know that he could get hurt. But if he doesn't step up in that pocket, and if he doesn't have that internal clock, it doesn't matter how good the offensive line is. The offensive line could give him, 3 to 4 seconds. But if he doesn't step in that pocket, and if he's not, paying attention to that, he's going to get creamed. So I think that the coaching staff understands that these are his weaknesses, and I think that they'll make the adjustments. Whereas in years prior, I honestly don't think that this coaching staff had it in them to make those adjustments. How many times did we see Eric Flowers turnstile get just demolished, and there were no adjustments made, and it was so frustrating because on so many levels, it's like everybody sees it. Everybody's watching it on TV. How could the coaches not make those changes that they need to make? I think this coaching staff will say, Cam Fleming sucking it at right tackle or left tackle, whatever. Let's try Matt Pert. I think Matt Pert has, another rookie. But I hope that they just play the players that are playing the best at their position. I don't want this just because he's number 1 draft pick, or just because this, that, and the third. Yeah. He's going to be there. So, and that's for freaking Daniel Jones too. If he starts shitting the bed and they put, Cooper Rush or Colt McCoy in there and they start winning, like, I don't give a fuck, all I want to do is win. And that's it.
I get that. But I feel like the number 1 problem for this team is that left tackle position. I still feel that, it's not even just the left tackle, it's both tackles. Right. And you could feel good about Pert, or you could feel good about Thomas and say, well, there's the future. But again, I can't. I mean, they say that football is 80% mental, 20% physical. So if they lose, if this first year, and again, you might say, well, you can't baby him, Pizzle. But if they go out there, if Perth goes out there and plays right tackle, or hell, even left tackle, because he did take some snaps in practice at left tackle, which doesn't make me feel good. But if Thomas goes out there and these guys just lose it early, I don't know if they recover from that. I just, for me, Thomas needed to play right tackle this season. He needed to,
and he still might. He still might.
I know, but if he does, then to a lot of people's points, everybody keeps telling me that they keep saying, well, he's the 4th overall pick. He can play left tackle. It's easy for him. And I'm sitting there thinking like, no, I don't think it's easy at all, because that's the blind side. And so I don't know how. And here's the thing too, is I really like what I've seen from Nick Gates this season, but I don't know. There are some positives to that offensive line. When Gallman broke that big run in the scrimmage, it was based on the offensive line creating that hole for him, which I've liked what I've seen from him. The funny thing is, I think we're actually really deep in some positions. I think the running back position, all of a sudden, we're really deep. I've liked what I've seen so far from them.
I love Deion Lewis. I think he's a sleeper pickup this offseason.
I was not on the Deion Lewis train, but I don't, now that I've seen some things and I've seen some practice stuff and I've seen the scrimmage, I'm not so against it.
He's the best blocking running back we have on the roster right now.
I'm not against it. So I think we've actually got a little deeper at running back, which I think is a good thing. I think our defensive line might be, it's hard for me to say this, but I think it might be our best unit. I think it's our best group. I think the secondary will have moments that they will struggle, but I actually think that the secondary is going to be fine. I know a lot of Giant fans are so concerned about the secondary, but
they're concerned because schematically last year they were in the raw, like the coaching staff just did such a shitty job playing to their strengths. I mean, it's a situational game. It's like, that's why Belichick is a fucking genius. And you don't have star players at any one of those positions in New England, because they play to their players' strengths. They don't try to fucking fit a square peg into a round hole, So,
well, I mean, it did feel, I won't lie, it felt like I got kicked in the nuts when I saw Xavier McKinney got hurt.
I mean, happen, though.
But I mean, like, of course, it's the Giants, and we can't ever see, which, I hope that I had a lot of faith in him, or I've bought into him a lot, and I'm hoping that he gets to have a good, healthy career. I hope he's not, I hope this isn't a start of a what could have been. Couldn't stay healthy. Could have been a great Giant, but couldn't stay healthy. I hope that this isn't.
I don't think this is a Kenny Phillips situation.
No, I mean, I just hope it's not. But that, don't get me wrong, it felt like a kick in the balls, but I still I think this secondary can be okay. And it can definitely be okay if the pass rush is really good. So if the pass rush is really good, the secondary will benefit from that.
So let me ask you a question then. Okay. And this is going to revert back to the point of how important coaching is, and recognizing that it's probably, obviously talent is important, but coaching, I think, is equally as important. When the Eagles were on the Super Bowl run, and even when they made the playoffs last year, their secondaries were decimated completely. Like, they picked people off the freaking street. I mean, they picked wide receivers off the streets last year. And that goes back to the whole coaching, and it goes back to the lines, right? Those two things. If you have a solid defensive line, if you have a solid offensive line, and if you have solid coaches, you got a chance. You got a shot every single year. But, sometimes you don't have any of those, and we haven't had any of that in like 5 or 6 years. So I think there's still shit that we're going to have to work through, and there's still kinks. I think we have a talented team, and I think we have the coaches that are, I think worst case scenario, we'll go like 6-10, maybe 8-8. But I think this team has the ability to make a push. Now, we do have a lot of young players, but I also think we have a lot of good coaches that are going to put the team in the best position to win. And I think, you don't there's
even
a
have
lot
to
of question marks, but I'm excited.
You don't have to even use the Eagles as an example. You could just look at the Giants Super Bowl teams, even in 07 and 11. Is both of those teams great offensive line play, great defensive line play. If you just have those two units playing really well, you've got a shot, you got a team. Now, obviously, you need to have a quarterback that's some You can't be Mitchell Trubisky out there, for example. You've got to be at some. You got to be able to make some plays. So for me, like if the defensive line, if it is really as good as it looked last night, I see that's my, or not. I keep saying last night. I meant to say Friday night. I don't know what I'm looking at when I watch those, because I don't know if I'm just looking at a really bad offensive line play or if I'm looking at really good deep. So I don't know which one, but if the defensive line is really good and the offensive line could get better, then yeah, the team can be better. The receivers, a lot of people have talked about the receivers. I love Darius Slayton. From what even the scrimmage stuff I saw, he's out there making plays. I can't get a lot of Giant fans to buy into him. I can't get any Giant fans. Too. I can't. And you know me.
He reminds me of a better Amani Toomer.
Darius Slayton is our number one receiver, and everybody keeps looking at Sterling Shepard, but Darius Slayton is the man. I'm not
a Sterling Shepard fan.
No, I mean I'm on the page of Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram. I'm giving them both the side eye because I'm about tired of them, and I've heard so much hype about Evan Ingram. And another thing that needs to stop too is this fantasy of, Evan Ingram could play receiver. Like, let that shit go. Like we need him to play tight end. The point we don't need it. We need him to have a linebacker on him. We don't need a cornerback on him. We don't need a slow ass a safety on him or a slow ass linebacker. That's what we need guarding him, not a cornerback. So why the hell would you want to put him at receiver? It doesn't make any common sense. So, I'm sick. Evan Ingram is getting more hype once again. It's like off-season or training camp number 3 in a row that everybody's bowing down to Evan Ingram. And here we go again. And I swear, Pete, the man's going to give me a heart attack if he doesn't perform at the level that everybody keeps saying that he's going to perform at. You know what I'm saying? So I hope it works out. I'll have a stroke if he doesn't. And I'm sitting. Once again, I can't stress this enough. Look, I hate going all in on players. You'll beat me up about this, but one time or another, I was all in on the Sonoris Moss train. Okay, you beat me up about that. At one time, I loved me some Sonoris Moss, and I went all in. And I looked like a fool because Sonoris Moss didn't do shit for the Giants.
I remember those days where I'm just like, "Cop, just shut the fuck up about him."
I was all in.
Like, he caught like a touchdown in Washington, and everybody was like, he's finally coming to," and then he'd like fumble or get a concussion.
I hate going all in on players, and then they make me look stupid. And so, right now,
just don't go all in anymore. I think you're definitely jinxing them.
Well, I'm all in on Darius Slayton. I mean, I can't.
Well,
I can't help but go all in.
Achilles next week. So
I know. I'm sure. I'm sure something will happen. Well, I was getting ready to go all in on Xavier McKinney, and then of course he got hurt. But so I mean, there might be something to what you're saying. But I've been a believer in Evan Ingram. I bought in the hype, and it just doesn't seem to work. I do think the Giants are going to use more 2 tight ends this year than ever.
I was just gonna say that. That's crazy. That was like the next comment I had.
I think they're. I think they're going to use. I think him and Caden Smith are going to be used a lot. I think the Giants are.
Our first play is going to be a read option. I bet you any money. People are going to shit a brick, but it'll be 2nd and 15 though.
Oh, I'm sure. But I think the Giants are going to be. From what I saw, and of course, again, I think they wanted just to kind of do some vanilla stuff, like you mentioned. I think you don't want to put anything necessarily on tape. It's a practice. People are going to televise it so that they can commercialize it, right? I'm sure that's what Jerry Jones, is doing. Like, obviously you mentioned tonight, they're having like a scrimmage, but they don't want to put the names or the numbers on the jerseys so that nobody knows who they really are. Some of the guys, who they are, but maybe some, if you're scouting them, you don't want to give away anybody that might be really good. But, they obviously commercialize it and do this, sell ads and whatnot. So they want to give something to the fans, but you don't want to give anything away. So I get the fact that the offense is vanilla and this and that, but nevertheless,
I'm glad
I feel like the two. I didn't like the two-hand touch. I didn't like the two-hand touch thing.
I get it, but
no, I get it, but I don't like. I mean, I was kind of like, really, like I kind of thought that Joe Judge, and I from what I've seen, again, he has brought some physicality to the team, but I figured that would continue on. But I guess you don't really want to get anybody hurt in a scrimmage. I understand it not to do the quarterback, but some of the players, I was like, I don't know about that, but I guess you want to save them a little bit. We're obviously 2 weeks away from basically kickoff.
right. So here's the thing for me, and I think this is another thing we need to consider is, and I'm super glad that the defense went off on the offense, because that gives you so much opportunity to see that stuff on tape and learn from it. Not only that, but if this is one of the better defensive lines and the jury's still out, totally get it, then this is excellent experience for the O-line, right? You're not going to see a defensive line as talented as the Giants every single week. You're going to see some swag-ass teams that don't have a pass rush or maybe have one or two impact players. But, I mean, you look across that line, you have Marcus Golden coming back. If he's healthy, he's I'm so glad we got him back, because I think he is a playmaker. I would much rather have Marcus Golden there than fucking scrub-ass Olivier plays at 50% burn-in because he's half Jamaican. Like, dude, if you want to go smoke doobies on the beach, do that and chill out, but don't fucking play football if you're going to be disinterested. Then you have on the other side of that, you have a Lorenzo Carter, right? Or an O'Shane Jimenez.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, O'Shane's still a little bit unproven, but I like his ceiling. I like both of those players a lot, and I think if they both can remain healthy, we're good. Blake Martinez, another situational pass rusher. And I think that the people that we have in the middle are going to allow our linebackers, Ryan Connolly was having a great season last year before he got injured. And hopefully, he's able. I saw a couple plays he made in scrimmage where he put his nose down and he made some tackles. If you go back and look at that tape, he stopped I'm not sure if it was Gallman or Leak short on a first down. And he made a pass breakup on Deion Lewis, which isn't, it isn't easy to do. And Jerry, you smoke weed, but you're also not a professional football player. And so I think, like, if we have some of these players coming back and they're healthy, and I really, no matter, even though fucking, the GM shit the bed with this trade, I really like, I just blanked on his name from the Jets.
Well,
who's it? Leonard Williams. I love him and Dexter Lawrence in the middle, and we have BJ Hill and Dalvin Tomlinson as backups. Like, this isn't we're pretty good.
I really like Dexter Lawrence.
I think he played well last year. I was looking for a little bit more, but I like the fact that he put in. He's a lunch pail guy. He's gonna put in that work. He's a lunch pail guy. Marcus Golden is a lunch pail guy. I think we have a lot of those types of blue collar dudes up front, and I think Leonard Williams just complements all of them. So again, this is a very talented defensive line, and the offensive line could only get better. Obviously, it's going to take time to gel. I love Mark Colombo as the new offensive line coach. So Pittsburgh's going to be a good starting point for us to really know just how far along we are, or maybe temper our expectations. I think our defense has a great opportunity to really pin its ears back and go after Ben and maybe, sideline him for the season. I never wish upon injury, but that motherfucker should have retired last year. Like, what the fuck are you doing back here? Like, he should be in prison, actually, but whatever. That's besides the point. But their defense is, Pittsburgh's defense, top 5 in pass rush and in run stopping last year. And, they're not going to be a joke. So from an offensive perspective, Danny Jones is going to be, and this offense is going to be tested against that pass rush and against that run stop. I think our defensive line is gonna do pretty well. But that's going to be a good starting point for us to really see just how well Judge has coached them up, and all the other coaches have been able to play to their strengths.
Well, I wanted to mention this while we talked about Pittsburgh, that we had talked off camera about doing a live stream for that Monday night game,
right?
The Steelers game, and so
Yep.
I think that's what I think we're going to try to do something like that, which I think will be a lot of fun, be good YouTube.
Yeah.
And
I'll probably forget that you can't stream the game, and I'll get banned. But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we can't do that. We can't be banning Pizzle's channel here, but nevertheless.
I'll put it on mine. Nobody goes to it.
No, well, I mean, like, but never. You believe? Let me tell you something. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people waiting for me just to do something stupid so they can flag it, and so my channel will go away.
Are you gonna twerk?
No, I mean, I'll twerk. I'll twerk. We're up by 14-0. I'll twerk. Damn right, I'll twerk. But I mean, hell, I'll twerk just like EDP up in the for a lead. But nevertheless. I really do like that week 1 matchup just because I think it's a good test for the Giants. And, I really am curious to see how this offensive line is going to shape up in the next couple weeks and what they're going to put out there week 1, because it is so crucial that Daniel Jones has protection, has an ability to stay healthy, can build confidence. This is a big season for Daniel Jones more than anybody else in the whole team.
Yeah.
This guy keeps asking this question. I'm gonna put it out there just because the poor boy wants the question answered. How do you see the NFC East playing out?
On paper, the Dallas Cowboys should win the division, but Mike McCarthy is like 600 pounds overweight, so I just hope that he can last the season. But in all honesty, I think Dallas should win that division. I mean, they're pretty stacked, and barring injury and complete ineptness, I don't think Jason Garrett could have shit the bed this year if he was still the coach over there. So I think Dallas. And then I think it's a wild card between the Eagles, Giants, and Redskins. I think that the jury's still out. Redskins have a brand new head coach. They have a second-year starting quarterback. They have a couple of decent wide receivers. Their defense is really stacked. But again, you have a lot of question marks. And Eagles, I don't know who their wide receivers are. I think that there's been a lot of just shuffling around on that team too. Doug Peterson could get them to play hard like they have, but then again, you have the issue of Carson Wentz playing in front of a pretty decimated offensive line, and he's injury prone. So there's a lot of question marks. I think the Giants, there's a lot of question marks. New coaches all around, second year starting quarterback, brand new offensive line, basically a defense that has some continuity there. So yeah, Dallas, I see, panning out at the top of the NFC East, and I think it's a horse race between the Giants, Washington, and the Eagles.
I mean, unfortunately, I think the Cowboys are winning 11 games. I think they're going to win double digits. I think they're going to win the division. I think that they just happen to be the best team put together with them. And it's not that the Giants aren't put together well. It's just we lack experience. That's just right. That's a big problem for us, is we lack experience. I like where our future is. I like the fact of what Joe Judge has done so far. And furthermore on that, I like some of these young players. I really do. I like Daniel Jones. I like Saquon Barkley. I like Darius Slayton. I like Dexter Lawrence. I like a lot of these players, but they have to learn to grow to play together and win together. That's the one thing the Giants don't know how to do, is win games right now. They can, some of the games last year, even the Eagle game, the one that the Giant that Eli played, they did not know how to win that game. And right. So that was a big problem to me. That I felt like that was a big problem.
And that was a big problem from a coaching staff perspective.
Yeah, it was. You're right.
They didn't really they didn't help. If anything, they made things worse.
Yeah, I mean, they just didn't know how to win. And so right. Now, this team has to learn how to win, and that's going to take a little bit of time. That doesn't mean that they can't win the first week against the Steelers. They can, but winning at a consistent level and then winning, one game is completely different. So I think the Cowboys, just based on the fact of their experience, and what and their team that they have around them so far, look, they're talented. So I think that they definitely probably will win the NFC East. I don't think the Eagles are as good as some people may make them out to be. I think that they're going to struggle tremendously. I think you're going to see Eagle fans slowly back the hell out of here off of YouTube.
And the only reason why I say that about the Eagles is because as opposed to previous years where they've had injuries at multiple positions, is that this is the first year that I've seen instability, insecurity, and just a question mark on both sides on both lines. You have, a defensive line that is aged. These guys, except for Barnett, maybe a couple of other players, they're not spring chickens anymore. Fletcher Cox is a top tier defensive lineman, but that was about 2 or 3 years ago. He kind of fell off last year, and he's injury prone. Then you got, Brandon Graham, which is, I still think, a pretty top tier defensive lineman. But again, he's got another year under his belt. I think their defensive line is regressed. And I think obviously their offensive line has regressed. So that's why, I think that the coaching is good over there. But I just think that the lines are too shaky for me to say, they're going to come out in second place in the division. And I think Washington, is Eric Flowers still over there? Because if he is, even better. But it's one of those things where they who is on their offensive line? They lost Trent Williams. They have a couple of guys who have been there for a few years. Unproven, don't know, unproven quarterback. Jury's out on their D line. So, again, there's just too many question marks.
I wanted to bring up this point because you kind of planted a seed in my head about Carson Wentz, for example. Like I'm just, one of the biggest things that I think that's going against the Eagles is the fact that I think Carson Wentz in just a few short years has already not necessarily peaked, but his body has already taken a lot of damage, through several years, and he's really started to show, signs of that. He can't even finish the season. He can't finish.
He can't throw to a wide receiver 30 yards down the field.
He can't finish. Well, but this goes back to Daniel Jones and my biggest concern about Daniel Jones is like when Carson Wentz first showed up, you saw the flash, you saw the potential, you saw a lot of good things. And of course he wears the man's ring. He didn't win a Super Bowl, but that's the thing with you have Daniel Jones is like, oh, well, here's the potential. You see the flash. You see he's got something here. But if he gets hurt and banged up like Carson Wentz, I'm going to feel the same way about Daniel Jones. And that's where it comes down to you got to be able to protect him. Now, a lot of what Wentz did to get hurt was his own doing of running outside the pocket and taking unnecessary hits. Those are things he did to himself. But nevertheless, I'm not high on the Eagles now, and I'm not high on the Eagles in their future at all either. Like I think their window of opportunity. Of course, they did get the Super Bowl. They got the Super Bowl, but their window has closed. I think it's closed, and I think it's closing fast. The Redskins, or whatever the hell you want to call them, they got so much dumb stuff going on that some of it has to do with football, some of it doesn't have to do with football. I just don't see how they put anything together this season. So to me, they're going to be a train wreck. I actually think the Giants, honestly, if everything goes well, they stay healthy, the COVID doesn't mess them up, because one of these teams, not even just in this division, but in all of football, one of these teams are going to get affected by COVID.
I will tell you this. We might have started off as the epicenter of, this COVID thing in America, but, knock on wood, I would expect, states like, down in the South to be more affected by this because their rules and whatever they're doing are a lot more lenient there in terms of just like, general like we shut down everything here and, we created the systems, we created the procedures and all this shit to ensure that hopefully if a second wave does come, we're ready for it. but B, we're just preventative. I mean, I can tell you everybody outside is still wearing a mask to this day. Doesn't matter where you're going, who you're with, if you're 6 feet apart, if you're 10 feet apart. I know New York is still making a big deal out of it. And I think mostly the tri-state area is. I don't know how it's been in other states, but from what I've heard, it's not been, I think there's a lot of, people out there that are still skeptical, that think this is a hoax. And that's neither here nor there. But, I think it might affect those states that are a little bit more lenient with the rules. Hopefully, knock on wood, football or people's lives won't get affected by this. But I agree with you. It's, 10-day quarantine. You could a starting quarterback, it could be a playoff game. It could be, a make it or break it game. And then you have this interruption to it. So, hopefully everybody's able to stay healthy because you always want to play, when your teams, when they're at 100%, and COVID obviously if you have like 5 players on the team that have it, they might just cancel a game, so it's like the baseball situation.
I bring that up because if everything goes right, okay, everything goes well, the Giants have an opportunity to finish second in this division. It's possible. It can happen. And in saying that, finishing second does mean that you can maybe sniff the playoffs in some capacity.
Yeah.
I don't, again, I'm trying. I want to be a realist. I honestly do. The fact is, if you look at the last 3 seasons, the Giants have been one of, if not the worst teams in the National Football League. That's just that. I mean, that's not.
I'll be right
It's
back.
not me saying it. It's just me saying it's just pretty much common sense and just facts looking right at you. So to say they just go from one of the worst teams in the last 3 seasons to all of a sudden a playoff team would be, that would be a huge jump. So they have to get back to just having a winning record or somewhat relevant of close to having a winning record. With that being said, I think it is possible that they can get the second place in the NFC East. Not that you get a trophy for finishing second in the NFC East, but I do think it's possible. And even as good as the Cowboys, I think, will be this season, I think it is possible that the Giants can beat the Cowboys one time this season. I don't think we can beat them twice. I think there's too many things going against us in order for that to happen. But I do think it's my biggest thing is I want the Giants to get through this year. Obviously, I want them to compete. I want them to try to win a Super Bowl, obviously, but I want to see some good things so that I can feel better about next season as well and grow from that. I don't want to see a bad year and say, well, it was Joe Judge's first year, coaching and it'll be, the same thing with Pat Shermer got that treatment, of like, well, like we'll give him another year and see how that goes. I don't want that. I want to see this thing actually work and show progress from day one.
Hard. Yeah, I want to see players playing hard. I'm sick and tired of seeing fucking blown coverages. Mm-hmm. Like, as long as they just get back to fundamental football, they stay in their gaps, they stay in their lanes, and just give the effort. I think that what the coaching staff is going to do, again, and I keep saying this, but just bring the game back to basics, because that's where you start fundamentally. That's where you start your foundation is if you know the basics, then you can build on that. And I still think that there's still, opportunity there, even if we're playing a vanilla defense, the first 2 or 3 weeks, or we're playing a vanilla offense the first 2 or 3 weeks, because that builds continuity. That, as long as you understand like the general, then you can build on that. And I think we haven't for a few years. We've just been trying to force things on players, and those players either haven't been prepared intellectually or just weren't intellectually there to understand, or they athletically just didn't fit within whatever those coaches wanted them to do. So what I anticipate from this coaching staff, and I'll say it again, and this is why I think there will be at least the Giants football games will be more palatable this year, is that they're really just harping on those small things. And the small things, once you keep building on the small things, and once you keep reinforcing and, day in and day out reinforcing the small things, that's when you'll be able to see some consistently good football and people that are putting effort out there. I mean, like I said, I watch the recaps of the training camp practices, and then I go around to other teams of the NFC East. I mean, out of all of the teams, maybe Dallas aside, the Giants practices are like really intense. You can see the attention and the focus of these players, where they're really like zoned in. They're giving it, high effort, if not max effort. And then I go over to the Eagles practice and I'm just like, damn, this is really shitty. And then I go over to the Cowboys practice, and it's a Dallas Cowboys are just a Dallas Cowboys. They breed football players down there. They've been having really good drafts ever since that, Jerry Jones just doesn't have his hand in the cookie jar in that process there. So, hats off to them. But you know what? Dallas might be one of those teams that, is like another Wade Phillips 2011 trade waiting to happen.
Oh, I mean, they
McCarthy, Mike McCarthy had success, but I think that was because a lot to do with Aaron Rodgers and just Aaron Rodgers, right?
Well, just because I think the Cowboys are going to win the NFC East doesn't mean I think they're going to go win the Super Bowl.
Who's on there, besides, Martin and Tyron Smith? I can't tell you anybody else who's on that offensive line. And that's been their stalwart. Like, that has been the catalyst of why that offense has been able
their offensive line, it used to be their go-to calling card, and it's not that's not the case anymore. I just feel like their defense is pretty good, and I feel like they've got a lot of good weapons to be able to exploit the the things that the Eagles, the Giants, and I'm calling them the Redskins, what they lack. I'll say this. You were talking about the practices. I didn't see any video on this, but I read about this, and I was actually really happy when I actually read this. There was a moment, I guess, in practice. It may have been Wednesday or Thursday, matter of fact, where Sterling Shepard had caught like a TD pass, and he threw the ball like he celebrated and then threw the ball like 30 yards down the field, something like that. Something of that capacity. And then Joe Judge made him go get the ball back and then bring it back to where they were practicing at. Right. And then I think he made him run again. And so the point is like that attitude of where the Giants were or what Sterling Shepard, which doesn't surprise me because I was actually surprised when I found out the other day that Sterling Shepard, and I didn't even think about it, but Sterling Shepard is the longest tenured Giant right now on this team, which is crazy to think about. It's just crazy to think Sterling Shepard is now is basically become the Eli Manning or Zach Diassi, of the Giants. But he comes from a time in which the Giants had zero discipline. Had no discipline, didn't care, just acted like a fool, took a boat trip, all this and that. And for Joe Judge, who is bringing in a new regime and a new, style, for him to attack that and try to fix that is really awesome to see, quite honestly. And
I don't think OBJ would be receptive to this, Coach.
No, there's no way.
He wouldn't. He'd be like, he's feeling too much of the attention. Why aren't the headlines about me?
Yeah, there's no way. And Jerry Ramirez, says that Tom Coughlin 2.0, and I've heard people compare him to Tom Coughlin.
2 Super Bowls.
Well, well, here's the thing. I don't know. Coughlin, had more of an older guy kind of look to him, right? He had that old mean man discipline kind of thing. The thing with Judge is, I see a guy who comes from a lot of, has a good pedigree of coaching, from the Nick Saban camp, from the Bill Belichick camp, and is a guy who could be there with us for the next 20 years. And if the foundation gets set correctly now, if it gets set correctly and the Giants are able to go win, Eagle fans and Cowboy fans and Redskin fans, if there's one thing they should be terrified of, is that the Giants get behind this guy if he's really good. Because if he's really good and he's actually a great coach, you've got a problem for the next 20 years with the Giants. I really believe that, because if he's really good, that means Daniel Jones probably will end up being really good, which he'll have a long career. And if the defense ends up being, the great thing about New England, they've always been able to do things with players that you don't even know who the hell they are. They're just able to compete with that. And if that's what Joe Judge is able to do, of course, I know you New Yorkers and most Giant fans have this obsession with big name players. Like, you guys got to have a big name player. You guys got to, it's like, I guess you guys got to go see the theater and you got to have the big actor or whatever. But if we can just do a whole lot with no name guys, quote unquote, that's going to be great for us for a long time, And so for me, when I see Devontae Downs, for example, is playing really well for the Giants, a lot of people, and I was high on Ryan Connolly, and Ryan Connolly, he did make some plays in the scrimmage the other day, but the fact is he is coming off of an ACL injury. So, will he be 100%? Devontae Downs, I was kind of on that Isaiah Simmons train, of drafting him because I felt like we need a linebacker. But if they can take a guy who, like a Downs, for example, and turn him into a great player, well, that's because the coaching staff did their job.
Right.
They were able to take something that really wasn't there and create something. And guess what? If you're able to do that, and you're not having to worry about going out and buy these players in free agency or having to spend high draft picks on them, you've got a great team. So I want to see guys on our roster succeed, because if guys on our roster succeed, it means the coaching staff is doing their job. It's not that we're going to have to go get players to do the coach's job. The coaches are doing their job to make the team better. I don't understand. Again, I'm running hot here at PTO6 because I get all this content. I take in all this content, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, where is the comment? Where is the brains in between the ears? Like I understand you're on YouTube looking for a job because common sense doesn't appear to be up inside your brain, so you can't get one off of YouTube. So you look for a job here on YouTube, and so it pisses me off because you're not talking about things that even make sense. So for me, I want to see our players succeed who don't have any names, because it means Joe Judge is doing his job. So if they got to tape tennis balls to their hands to make them not hold or make plays, let's do it. Like, you know what I mean? If that's what it takes to work, let's do it. I don't, the take a lap thing.
I like it. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, I don't care, but I want the team to succeed long term. And these first couple years, most notably this year, is so important because it could literally set up the foundation for years to come. Because if the Giants are able to go out and have a winning year, I don't know if there's. I'm serious, Pete. I mean, even during our Super Bowl years, I'm not so sure there's more of an important year to be a Giants, or this is one of the most important years, I think, in Giants franchise history. I really do. I really believe that, because we have to find our coach. We have to. We haven't had one in years. Even Tom Coughlin's later years, that it was starting to go away. So when you bring in McAdoo, didn't work out. Made the playoffs one year, but didn't work out. Shermer didn't work out. These are several years. Like, we have to find our general. We have to find our leader, and it's time for the Giants to be a relevant football team again. And so, if Joe Judge doesn't work out, PTO6, if Daniel Jones, what the hell are we going to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, what?
Super Bowl.
It ain't gonna be any Super Bowls anytime soon. If you know what I mean, if they don't succeed. So, for me, I'm really I like what I've seen so far. I'm happy with it. I feel like old Giants football is coming back. The philosophy. I'll say this too. I was a big Bill Parcells fan as a younger man, and I do sense a little bit of him in Joe Judge. It's not exactly. Bill Parcells obviously had a little bit more of I don't want to say charisma, but he had just maybe a sense of humor He had, you know what I mean? He had a little bit more of a sense of humor, more of a jokester. I don't see that in Joe Judge. I see him being a little bit more no nonsense. But it's just really.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that Joe Judge gives you what he gives you in the media, which makes him, which portrays him in a certain type of way. But I think he's a player's coach. I think he's one of those coaches that if you just do your job, he's not gonna ride you, and he's not gonna be a dick just to be a dick. There was a snippet of, I don't know if you saw this or not, but I think it was in the highlights of the scrimmage. But he bought Danny Jones aside and he said, 99% of what I saw from you, I loved. But could you tell me, what that 1% was? And, it's not like he's saying, what the fuck are fumbling? Like Parcells wouldn't even call Phil Simms by his name. I don't think. He would just be like, you fucking idiot. Like, what are you doing out there? Like, what the fuck? Sorry, I'm cursing. I hope there's no kids watching this, but it's after hours, so go to bed.
They need to hear some cuss words, Pizzle06.
Anyway, so I think Joe Judge is one of those coaches that, he has this core, right? These core principles that every coach needs to be consistent with. Now, whether or not the players will be receptive to those core principles is a different story. But I see him as an approachable coach, right? Rather than a non-approachable coach. I'm sure there were people that were intimidated by fucking Bill Parcells up the walls, and they would never feel like they could approach him. I think you can approach Joe Judge. However, I think he just has very high expectations, as he should. And I think that he demands that the hard work and I think, but here's where he bridges the gap. And this is why I think he'll be a good coach, is that he'll be able to connect his message to the improvement of the team. It might not be shown in the way in the win or loss column, but I think that it will progressively, prove itself to these players. Like, damn, like I'm busting my ass out there, but look at all of this progress that we've made. And we might have not won today, but I could say that we've improved. So as long as he's able to bridge his message of this is why we bust our asses, this is why we go out there with the purpose every day, everything that we do, this is how it translates into real time play, then he'll be a really good coach. But if there's inconsistency with his messaging, which I don't think there will be, then he's going to struggle. So I think overall he's one of those coaches that is consistently consistent. You'll know what to expect from him, and then it'll pay dividends down the line once you see improvement. And I think that that's just going to take some time. But I also think that he's one of those people that I think if somebody's shitting the bed and they're starter, he won't hesitate to replace them with somebody else. Just
well,
the past.
I'm with you on that, and I want to kind of come full circle to a point that you asked or you talked about earlier, and I think the question somewhat was, had my expectations changed since watching the scrimmage,
right?
Which is something you asked and to come full circle on that, my expectations has not changed. In fact, I think if anything, my expectations have grown because I do like what I see from Joe Judge, but make no mistake about it, he has a tremendous job ahead of him to try to make this team a really good football team, because they are showing signs of struggling even in scrimmage practice. They're showing. So if they say what?
Why scrimmage?
No, I get that. My what I'm saying though is that if they compete at a high level, even week one or in week two, and granted, I think all of the National Football League will look a little sloppy the first couple weeks without preseason football. But if they, if they compete, if the Giants are able to compete well and do great things, then I think a lot of it will be because of Joe Judge. And it will also be because Dave Gettleman was able to get some talented players in here as well that Joe Judge could mold. And that's the one thing that I think is going to be different here as well as Pat Shurmur and Dave Gettleman. Dave could not get the players that Pat could work with, and nor could Pat change the players that Dave had. It's if you can get that head coach and that GM to bond together to be able to mesh well with the players that he brings in, and you can coach those guys, it makes things, I think, tremendous for that organization and that team. And I feel like that Joe Judge can work with the guys that Dave Gettleman brings in. And so with that being said, I'm very positive about this year. I am just a little nervous about it.
The Vegas line on the Giants winning the Super Bowl?
What I have no. I'm sure it's very high. I'm sure it's like
$1 and be a millionaire by the end of the year.
I'm sure they're at least 100 to 1, if I had to guess. But again, it's not. Do I want them to win the Super Bowl? Absolutely. That's the whole point of rooting for them. But it to me, I think they can still do great things without winning the Super Bowl this year. If they can just compete, be in the hunt, be in the mix. There's more experienced teams in the NFC, but that doesn't mean that we can't hang with those teams. And if we are able to hang with those teams, it's going to mean 2021 is going to be a year that we can really get excited for. But we went over an hour.
What would make you more excited? What would make you more excited? The D that comes out and sacks the shit out of Ben Roethlisberger, or an offense clicks?
I think I would. I want to see I would rather see the defense dominate than the offense just out there clicking. And I know that we kind of had that a little bit in 2016 where the defense was really good and maybe helped carry us in the playoffs, but the offense couldn't get their shit together. But to me, Giants football has always been about great defensive play and being able to run the football. That's, to me, has always been Giants. So you could tell me we have a great offense, but our defense lacks. It in my opinion won't work for what we are. We have to have a great defense and a solid running game. And although I'm not as high on Saquon Barkley as most people are, I think he's great. I think he can be great. I just feel like we have the running back in place that good things can happen. Hopefully we have an offensive line that's going to grow and work together. That's another thing that,
I would love an I formation or two.
Well, here I do have to say that, when you've got a lot of new pieces on the offense, especially the tackles, the offensive line has to mesh well together. They have to learn how to mesh. They have to figure out how to work as units. So that could have been somewhat of the problem in the scrimmage. I'm not panicking. It's just, for me, I am very concerned about that left tackle position. I don't care that we have a 4th overall pick that may go there. I'm concerned about it for Daniel Jones' safety and future. But I'm optimistic, Pt06. I like some of the things that's happening. I like some of the players. Some of these guys like Lorenzo Card and Evan Ingram, I've mentioned that I just hope they don't let me down. But I'm not optimistic about them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm not gonna let you trick me again. But we'll see.
I'm excited. I'm just excited to see what these coaches have up their sleeves. I think obviously you could get back by on raw talent so much, but I'm really excited. I really like the D-line coach, the crazy mofo, and I love him.
Mm-hmm.
I do have really solid coaches back there. They're going to hold the players accountable day in and day out, not just week in and week out. I think that there's going to be more accountability, and I think that he's going to play hard. And I don't think it understands really quickly and hit the fucking iceberg. Know that he's better, and I think that they'll buy into coaching, and defense takes off, it'll give the offense momentum, and it's football. Have the offense, especially in a Super Bowl run, the momentum builders. There was Strahan, there was OC strip sack, there was seeing the complete like momentum shift happen. And that's what I'm super excited to see what the defense can do. Just because I just want to like see it 3 and out once in a while.
Yeah.
The worst, third down percentage last year against. I mean, they were just a putrid team, but football on both lines, but especially the defensive line. And I think I really like Blake Martinez. I hope he can stay healthy. I think he's one of those players that he does have handy and a Saquon Barkley or quick running back out of the backfield. I think that he's one of the players that's really like cerebral, and I think he won't be, obviously nobody can step up as an Antonio Pierce for this defense, but I think we've just lacked anything like that at the linebacking position. And I think Blake is probably, the past 4 or 5 years, the best, at least like intellectually, than anything we've had here. So I'm what the new additions can bring. Fackrell's a great athlete too, so I'm interested to see what he can do. And Bradbury's a solid dude. So I know I keep talking about the defense, but I honestly can't be the last time I was this excited about the level of talent that we have out there. And I'm glad that DeAndre Baker's not on this team anymore. We've been snake bitten so badly by drafting CBs. I mean, Eli Apple, gone. What's his face? DeAndre Baker, gone. We had the unfortunate case with, Kenny Phillips, who had this crazy freak knee shit. He was going to be a star, gone. The Jason Sehorn situation. I'm sure I'm missing like 4 or 5 other circumstances, but I like the thread of this team. I think that there's a lot of just like really good lunch pail type players in there that are going to buy into this message. There aren't any divas there. There aren't any people that think that like the media can leech to. I think just listening to a lot of these player interviews, they're just vanilla. I like that. I don't like players that controversy. I don't want to know saying like, oh, I don't want somebody doing an interview with Lil Wayne ever again. Like
never again.
That was who just can't do that, and then spit you out, and you get freaking traded to the Browns for your life. But things where I think that the defense will be the catalyst, and I think the offense will probably take some to. So hopefully the defense can carry us for the first few games, and while the offense sort of gets itself in a place where 50-50, and well, we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of question marks for me, but I will tell you, I'm super excited, and I think a lot of that excitement just comes from the coaching.
Yeah.
That's where my number one source of excitement is coming from. I'm seeing a different type of intensity team that believes in accountability, and we don't have big names. We really don't. If you think about it, we have players that were drafted highly, but none of them are like divas. So this whole situation, in Dallas with CD, like everybody's like putting their chips all in because they made a smart move. They drafted him, and they probably could have used. They had needs on that team. They probably could have used a really good safety. They probably could have used another good defensive lineman or CB, but they got CeeDee Lamb, and you have Amari Cooper there already. Ezekiel Elliott. It's one of those things where it's like a game, but then again, it's Dallas, and I could so see that team be the 1,000. It doesn't look too different from Wade Phillips, so you just never on the sidelines. They have similar, physical personality to them.
Yeah.
I just hope they get in their own way, because talent-wise, holy crap.
Yeah, I think I like I said, I am worried about the Cowboys this year, but we'll just have to wait to see. I mean, obviously injuries and anything can happen at any moment, especially in this COVID season. Anybody can get COVID, or their team can get affected from it, and it messes them completely up. So, this is going to be a very interesting season, and one that I think will definitely be memorable, but I think it's one that's definitely important for the Giants. We've went well over an hour. I think we've done pretty good. I think it's pretty good. We're able to get some scrimmage thoughts, and we mentioned that we're going to go live for the Steelers game, and I'm sure we're going to go live again before the season actually kicks off. But we wanted to just come out here and do a little live stream, and I think it was good. I think we hit a lot of good talking points, and I'm positive. I'm very positive about the Giants. I really am, and I think I could. I know you're a big of a Giants fan as I am, and I feel that positivity from you as well. And so I think there's some good things. So I appreciate Nicole. Yeah, well,
me thinking that we'll win. We're going to be 10-6. The positivity is that the ship is hopefully already steered in the right path. It's we're no longer like on that path where we're going to go over a freaking cliff. Like, we're finally just getting to that point where we could start to write the we're writing the ship, basically.
Exactly. And I think we are. I think based on what I've seen, and even going back to the scrimmage, I really do. I feel like we are. So awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Nicole, and we'll do it again shortly. And I appreciate everybody coming in here and hanging out with us, and those that watch us post stream. Appreciate the view on that as well. So we'll be seeing you guys again, and most importantly, go Giants.
Stay safe out there.
Stay safe. Except for Cowboy fans. Yeah, go Giants. All right, Nicole.